Phillies manager Rob Thomson, good enough to take some time with us to relive that moment. Rob, good morning. Happy New Year. If I'm going to ask you about your memories of that swing and that moment, where do you begin the discussion?
I'll tell you, probably the noise in the stadium was just louder than anything I've ever experienced in my life. The excitement, it was a long day, and there was a lot of anticipation going into that game. It was a mid-afternoon game. We knew there was going to be weather. We didn't want to go back to San Diego. It was a great matchup with Darvish and Wheeler. We get off to a little bit of a lead early on a Hoskins home run, then they kept battling back. They took a 3-2 lead, I think, in the seventh. We threatened in the bottom. Stott let off with a double. We just couldn't get them across, and then the eighth inning happened, and wasn't it bad? I mean, I don't know what their approach was. I think it was a 7 or 8 pitch at bat, but it looked like they were trying to stay hard away on him. They only threw one changeup in the at bat, and only came in once during the at bat, and Harper just stayed with his approach, and it was, you said it best. It's the big boy showing up in the big moment, and he certainly did. It was as exciting a moment as I've ever had in my career.
Yeah, and Rob, you're a guy that spent your entire adult life in baseball. It's quite a statement. I want to ask you about that at bat and that sequence, because later, after we learned about what Bryce was going through and some of the reporting, he was very candid about his process there. I think the changeup came before the homer. And Bryce was very candid in saying, I knew he wasn't going to go back-to-back with another changeup. So it almost felt like he was able to manipulate that sequence to his liking. And rare is the player that can do that. I mean, is that a right read on what Bryce is able to do in that moment?
I think so. He's got that ability, and you're right. There's only a few guys that can do it, but actually the hitter setting up the pitcher, and I think Bryce did that. As soon as he took that 1-2 changeup and got it to 2-2, I really thought, our chances of something big happening were really go up.
I think of Bryce Harper, and I think of what he's become here in Philly. This was obviously a huge moment, but there had been moments even prior to this. Can you talk about kind of the leadership that you see from him and how he has really molded into, and I think molded the city into kind of his attitude and how he approaches the game, and it's really been incredible to watch.
Yeah, Harper fits in, and a lot of our guys do. They fit in with the city very well because he's a really blue-collar guy. He's a tough guy. He's not afraid of anybody, anything, any situation, and that's how he leads. He's not a big screamer, yeller in the clubhouse. He just goes out and leads by example, and this guy's got no heartbeat. There's not a moment that's too big for him, and I'm just glad he's on our side.
Your club is so much fun to watch, Rob. I mean, we love watching the Phillies all year, but in the postseason, it just seems to be a different thing. And for somebody that's never been around the team, that's never been to Citizens Bank Park in October, is there anything you could compare it to in your career in the sport?
Well, I really can't. I was with the Yankees for a long time and playing the Red Sox either in Boston or in New York. There's a lot of electricity in the ballpark. There's a lot of noise. Our crowds in Philly during the playoffs, they stood from the first pitch until the last pitch, and they screamed from the first pitch until the last pitch. And I really haven't seen anything like that in my life. We played, the game before the Harper game was a night game, and we weren't really sure how they were going to react coming back for a mid-afternoon game, but they were even louder during Game 5. So it's really a special atmosphere, and if you haven't been a part of it, I think people need to put that on their bucket list and get out there.
Speaking of the whole team and the way they show up for the playoffs, I got to ask you about two guys real quick. JT Realmuto, I played against him when he first came up with the Marlins. I kind of saw the ascension, the athleticism, the way he worked behind the plate, obviously the offensive capability. Can you tell the folks at home a little bit about off the field, what makes him who he is and how he's able to, maybe what goes into it that they don't see besides the numbers and things like that?
Yeah, he's from Oklahoma. He comes from a very athletic family, a lot of wrestling and multiple sports in their family. He's just such a great athlete. He's the best ping pong player. He's the best golfer. He's the best bowler. He's the best at everything that you can think of. So very well-rounded, very smart, very dedicated. He cares more about his pitchers than he does his offensive numbers. That's just who he is. And he's just kind of the captain on the field for us. And I put a lot of trust in him, and I respect him as much as I've respected any player I've ever had.
Speaking of his pitchers, I got to ask you about my guy Wheels. I actually caught his debut with New York. He's one of my really good friends in the game. I love the success that he's had. Any surprise from your perspective? It doesn't really surprise me, but from your perspective as to the postseason pitcher he's become? Because he's pretty much a legend now when it comes to not just Philly, but in all of baseball. He's one of the best postseason pitchers of all time as it stands right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The numbers are so good that I'm not sure if you could expect that out of anybody. But his ability to pitch, and with the stuff he's got, and be able to locate all his pitches, and the heartbeat that he has, because he's another guy that, there's not a moment I don't think is too big for him. That combination is pretty good when you put him on the mound in a playoff situation where the anxiety is a little bit higher, and he can overcome that stuff just with his makeup. And he's really special. He's another guy. We've got a good club. We got a lot of really good players. I think the best is yet to come, and Wheels is certainly a big part of that.
Rob, we appreciate the visit this morning. Best to you and your family here in the new year. We look forward to seeing you when spring training kicks off. It feels like it's right around the corner. We got a little bit of time left. You got a little bit of time to hunt and fish and get it out of your system before you got to get down there to Florida. Way to go, Rob. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
I want to see those Garrett Stubb overalls on you this year if you get to celebrate a little bit, all right?
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Phillies manager Rob Thomson joining us on the Friday Stove.